In this video, I'll show you how to animate like Sutoxoriginals. He creates amazing UI animations and goes viral every single time. This style of animation is a mix of expressions and shape morphing, and we can use one shape layer to transition between a bunch of different UI elements. The assets for this project can be found in my Discord server. And with that being said, let's get started. I'll break this video down into two parts. First, I'll show you how shape morphing works in After Effects, and then we'll set up our assets and get to animating our scene. I'm going to demonstrate my method, which is mainly used for basic shapes such as boxes and circles, and it's extremely effective for UI animation. There are other methods for more complex shapes that I can cover in a separate video. Alright, first let's create a shape layer. Hold Shift to create a square, and then we can align it to the center using the Align panel. To change this square into a circle, we can mess around with the roundness property. And now we've got a circle. We can keyframe the roundness amount to animate the shape morph. So I'm going to make this a square again and set a keyframe for the roundness. Go a few frames ahead and increase the roundness. And now we've got our first shape morph. We can take this a step further and turn the circle into a rectangle with rounded corners, which is a common button style used in UI designs. So set a keyframe for the scale and then press the link icon to unlink the scale so we can change the height and width separately. Let's go a few frames ahead and change the width till we've got our desired shape. Looks quite cool already. We could even animate the fill color, so set a keyframe for the fill color in the properties tab. And then let's move the timeline and change this to a purple. The possibilities for this are endless. Of course, we could easy ease the keyframes and mess around with the graphs to get a smoother animation, but we'll get into that later on. I hope this has helped you to get the basics down, because now we're going to start working on our scene. I've got a few designs that I've already made so that we can get straight into it. You can download them from my Discord linked below. In the next video, I'll show you exactly how I create these UI designs, so make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for that. Let's get these imported into After Effects. I'll drag these files in one by one, starting with the iOS gallery. Make sure that when you get this pop-up, you change the import kind to composition and then hit OK. Now we can group these in a folder and rename it to stay organized. Let's do the same for the other two Illustrator files. So we've got the Instagram post. Let's group that and rename it. Then we have the label and we can just name that label. Our main designs are imported, but there's something you need to know about using Illustrator files in AE. And it's that we can't convert these text layers into editable text layers like we can with Photoshop files. As you can see, the option is grayed out. The workaround to this is to export the Illustrator file as a PSD as well, and then replace the text layers with the Photoshop ones. Let me show you exactly what I mean. So I'll head back to Illustrator, and at the top we can hit File and then Export As. Make sure the format is set to Photoshop, and that the Use Artboards checkbox is enabled, as it will include all of the space around our design. Now we can head back to AE. I've already exported the rest of the designs as Photoshop documents, so let's import our first one and just group it up. I'll name it iOS Gallery PSD. And then we can open up the composition that is created. I've put a T in front of the text layers so we know which ones to copy. Let's open that up and we'll find our text layer. Copy this to the Illustrator composition and paste it above the same text layer. Then we can delete the Illustrator layer, as we won't be needing that anymore. We've essentially replaced the Illustrator text layer with the Photoshop one. And I'll do the same for the second text layer, which is the time. Copy the text layer and paste it above the time layer. And then we can delete this as well. Now we're able to convert these layers into editable text layers. Sweet. Let me show you why I've used Illustrator for this project and why it's much better than using Photoshop files. I'll just select any of these layers and scale it up. As you can see, it looks very blurry. We can enable this checkbox here to continuously rasterize the layer. And now we can scale our icon up as much as we'd like without losing any quality. Let's enable this checkbox for all of the layers and also apply motion blur. We can now set up the rest of our assets. So I'll import the Instagram post PSD, group it and rename it. Then we can open up the Illustrator composition and also the Photoshop one. Copy this username text over. Delete the AI layer, as we won't be needing that. And then convert the text to editable text. Apply continuously rasterize and motion blur. And that's our second scene set up. Lastly, we've got the label. So I'll import it, group the layers, rename it to label PSD, open up both of the compositions. We've only got one text layer in here, so I'll open it up and copy it over. Then delete the AI layer, convert to editable text, and enable both the checkboxes. That's all of our files prepared, and we can finally get to animating. Alright, let's start off by creating our main composition. We'll be making a vertical video, so set the width to 1080 and the height to 1920, 30 frames per second, and the duration can be however long. I'll keep mine at 10 seconds. Rename it to main animation. Now go to layer and create a new solid. Make sure it's set to white, as this will be the background to our scenes. Alright, let's copy the iOS gallery layers into our main comp. I'm going to add demo content to this video holder. I've provided them in the files for you to use as well. So import these into After Effects. And I'll drag the first demo video above video holder 1. As you can see, we've got 2 video holders here, as we'll be switching between them. Let's keep video holder 2 hidden for now. We can drag the whip icon under track mat to clip this video inside of video holder 1. And I'll also drag the whip under parent and link to video holder 1. This will link the video to the movement of the video holder layer. Let's unhide it. As you can see, moving the position moves the demo video too. Alright, so let's scale up the demo video so that it fits within the container, and we can just move it into position. So for our first animation, we're only going to have the video in frame. Then it will zoom out and reveal the UI. But if we try to scale these layers up, everything will scale from the center of itself, which is not the effect that we're trying to achieve. So I'll link each UI element to its own null object, which can change the anchor point to the middle of the composition. And it will also allow us to group any sections that contain multiple layers. I'll use the shortcut Command-Shift-Option-Y to create a null layer and rename it to video holder null. Then we can select the timeline, player controls. We won't need to select the demo video as it's already linked to video holder 1. So let's skip that and select video holder 1 and 2 as well, and link them to the null object. Now, if we move the position of the null, you can see all the video elements are attached to it. Select all of these layers and recolor them so that it's easier to read. I missed this one, so let's just recolor that. Alright, and now we've got the back icon, which I'll put in its own null. Rename it to back icon null. Link it and then recolor it. Then we've got the text. Create a null and name it text null. And link both of these text layers as we want to scale them down together. And then we can set a color. Now we've got the close icon, so just repeat the same process. Then the thumbnails, create a null, link, and recolor. Now we've got the share icon, bottom icons, and finally the delete icon. Awesome. All of our UI elements are linked up to their own null objects. Select them all and hit S to open up the scale control, and then we can set a keyframe. Drag it over about 5 frames, and then we can scale it up until the video is fully in frame. There's a bit of space at the bottom, which we can fix by changing the position. So select only the video holder now and hit P to open up the position. Set a keyframe and drag it over. And then we can drag this null layer down until it's all in frame. Perfect. This is how it's looking so far. I'm going to smoothen out the video holder now so that it slowly scales down. Hit U twice to reveal both of the keyframes. And then apply Easy Ease. Go into the graph editor and drag in the left side. And also the right, just a tad. I'll extend these keyframes a bit so the animation is slightly longer. Let's see how that looks. Perfect. A common effect Sutoxoriginals likes to use is bouncy keyframes, and we're going to achieve this effect with an expression. Here is the expression we're going to be applying. It may look confusing and foreign to you, but trust me, it's extremely easy. Amp is the amplitude and it controls the strength of the movement. Frec is the frequency and it controls how fast the movement occurs. And decay controls how quickly the movement dies over time. These are the main variables which you can mess around with to achieve different results. But don't worry, you won't need to change any of it. We'll use this exact expression and it's in the description for you to copy to your own project. Let's get this applied to our keyframes. Select the back icon now. Hold Alt on your keyboard and press the stopwatch icon. This will open up a text box where we can paste our expression. Here you can see that it's worked and the back icon is bouncing even after the keyframes have ended. It would be quite time consuming to apply this one by one to each null. So let me show you an easy way to copy one expression to multiple layers. Right click the scale and click copy expression only. And then we can select all of our nulls and press Command V to paste the expression. We can tell that it's been applied as the values have turned red. Let's see what that's looking like. Cool. I'm going to drag the UI layers over and leave the video player where it is so that it zooms out first and then the other UI elements follow. Now that looks much better. Let's sequence these layers by one frame each so that they can come in one by one. The back icon will come in first, so let's select all of the layers underneath and drag them over by one frame. Then we can deselect the text layers and move the rest of them over by another frame. Because we recolored our layers, it's super easy to do. So just repeat the same process. Let's see what we've got. Awesome. Because of the bounce expression, the thumbnail layer is going underneath the video player. So I'll select all of these video layers and drag them under the thumbnail layers. And change the color to yellow. Now the thumbnails are on top of the video player as they should be. Let's make these player controls and the timeline fade in as we zoom out. Move your timeline to about here when the video is just starting to zoom, and press T to open up the opacity. Then set a keyframe and drag the points over. Now we can change the opacity to 0. Perfect. Let me just make this a bit bigger. We could even animate the timeline so that it's moving as the video is playing. Right click the timeline layer, go to create, and then create shapes from vector layers. This will convert the AI layer into a native After Effects shape layer. As you can see, it's hidden our layer and created a new one. Apply motion blur, then open it up, contents, group 1, and then path 1. Here we can set a keyframe for the path and just drag it over to the right. Let me zoom in a little. Select these 3 points and then drag them to the left. I'll spread these keyframes out a bit so the animation is longer. Maybe a bit more on this side. Alright. Now the timeline is animated and it looks like a video is playing. We could even just move this up a bit. For the next section of our scene, we're going to switch out this video for another. I do have this video holder 2 layer, but if I converted this to a shape layer, it won't have the roundness property. So instead, we're going to manually create it using a rectangle. Select the rectangle tool and hit Command R to open the ruler. Place guides on each side of this video holder. This will allow us to recreate the video holder accurately as the shape will snap to the guides. We can place them roughly around and then zoom in and adjust it till it's perfect. That looks good. Let me just adjust this. Okay, now using the shape tool, let's create our rectangle. In the properties tab, I'll adjust the roundness and match it up to the layer below. Perfect. Now we can turn off the guides and change the color to black. Rename the layer to shape layer, as we'll be using this shape to morph between the different scenes. To create the swap animation, we're going to cleverly use a null object and some math. Press P to open up the position, and then click the X value to open up the input field. Type in +1000. This will move our layer over by 1000 pixels and it will be completely out of frame. Now we can create a null object and rename it to video switcher. Let me just open this up. Okay, drag both of these layers just above video holder 2. We can even just delete this layer as we won't be needing it anymore. Since video holder 1 is already linked to the video holder null, we won't be able to link it to a second null object at the same time. But what we can do is change the hierarchy. So I'm going to select video holder 1 and shape layer, which is our second video holder, and link them to the video switcher null. And then I'll link the video switcher null to the video holder null. Now these two layers are controlled by this null object, which is all controlled by the video holder null. We can keyframe the position of the video switcher to swap out our videos. Move your timeline to about here and set a keyframe for the position. Then we can move up a few frames. If you remember, we moved the second video holder by 1000 pixels. So now we can press the X value and type in -1000 so that it moves in the opposite direction. This will place our second video player directly in the middle. And now we've got our swap animation. Pretty simple. Let's make it more dynamic by applying easy ease. Open the graph editor, drag in the right a little so that it slows down towards the end of the movement. That looks good. Alright, it's time to tidy up our timeline a bit. I'll change the color of this layer to yellow. We can delete the timeline AI layer as we're not using it anymore. And we can change the color of the video switcher null. I'll leave the shape layer as blue, as this shape will be used for our next scenes as well. Now let's link our second demo video to this shape layer. Drag it into the composition. Track matte it to shape layer, then link it. And don't forget to apply motion blur. Unhide the shape layer, and if you're wondering why it's hidden, it just happens whenever you track matte an object. Adjust the scale so that it fits within the box. I'll move it up a bit, just like that. Cool. And we can recolor it to yellow. You could import your own images for the thumbnail section, but I'll leave them as they are to not waste any time. Alright, it's time to animate out this gallery scene. I'll have the UI elements slide out from the bottom and the top. Move the timeline over and select all of the nulls besides video holder null. Press P to open up the position and set a keyframe. Then we can move over about 15 frames. The top row consists of 3 nulls, so I'll select those and change the position so that it's out of the frame. Then we can do the same for the bottom 4 elements. And drag those down till they're out of the frame. Cool. The timing looks good on that. Let's easy ease these keyframes. Open the graph editor and drag the left point in. That looks good to me. Alright, so just like we did before, we're gonna stagger the keyframes. We'll have the back icon go first, then the text, and then the close icon. And for the bottom row, it will be the share icon, the bottom icons, the delete icon, and then the thumbnail. The back icon is already at its starting point, so let's select the text null keyframes and move them over by 1 frame. And then the close icon null, just move them over a frame after that. We can leave the share icons null as they are. Then we've got the bottom icons null, then the delete icon, and finally we can move the thumbnail keyframes over. And this is how it looks. Perfect. Now we can clean up and trim off the ends of our layers. So since we've just animated these ones out of the scene, I'll highlight them and press Alt and the right square bracket to trim the ends. The same goes for the layers here. Cool. If you're finding this video helpful so far, then be sure to hit the subscribe button. This video is actually a part of the Editing Launchpad, a platform where I'll teach you how to master video editing with a full in-depth editing course, live coaching calls, a step-by-step guide to growing your personal brand, and so much more. So if you're ready to start earning thousands of dollars every single month, then join the waitlist below. Alright, to transition into our next scene, we'll morph this shape into a square for the Instagram post. Start by copying the Instagram layers into the main comp. I'll paste them just above the video layers. Use the left square bracket to bring the layers to the playhead. And now let's get to morphing. I'll just move the playhead back a little and select the shape layer. Open up the contents to reveal the rectangle path controls. Keyframe all 3 of these to lock in the shape. And then we can move a few frames ahead. Let me just zoom in. Unlink the scale and resize it so that it matches up with the grey box. When changing the position, you won't be able to drag it, as this will move the position of the layer and not the position of the path. So use the values here and drag them into place. Just a few more adjustments. Set the roundness to 0 so that it's a square. We could copy the width and paste it into the height to get a perfect square. Cool. Let's just hide these layers so we can see how the morph is looking. That's looking great so far. I'm going to make the size transition bouncy by adding that expression to it. So go to the stopwatch beside size, hold Alt and press the stopwatch, and then paste in the bounce expression. And now we've got a super cool transition. Since these video layers aren't in view anymore, I'll shorten the layers using Alt right bracket. And let's make the Instagram layers visible again. We can delete the video holder layer, which is the grey box, as we don't need that anymore. Awesome. Now we're gonna animate all of these Instagram UI elements into the scene. They're gonna slide out from beneath the Instagram post. Some of them are in two parts, such as the profile picture and the story ring around it. We can link these layers to a null objects so that we can control them together. Go to the start of the layers and create a new null object. Use the left square bracket to bring the layers to the playhead and rename it to profile picture null. Now we can link both of these layers to it. I'll change the color so that it's easier to read. The username is just by itself, so I won't link it to a null. So is the three dots. The like element is in multiple parts, so I'll link them to a null object. Let's create one, move it to the playhead and rename it to like null. Then we can link these layers to it. The same goes for the comment section, so I'll just link these and rename that to comment null. Lastly, we have this message section, so let's create a null and link that. The bookmark icon is a single item, so we won't need to link that to a null. I'll recolor all of the single layers so that we know they're not connected to any other elements. Alright, so all of these elements will be sliding out. Both the top and the bottom will come in at the same time. We can start with the top row. Select the profile picture null, username, and three dots layer. Hit P to open the position and set a keyframe. Then we can move the playhead back and drag the layers down. Probably a bit lower. That's cool. We can do the same for the bottom row. I'll select the like null, comment null, message null, and bookmark icon. Set a keyframe for the position, go to the start of the layers, and just drag these ones up. This is what we've got. Now we can apply the expression to these keyframes and make them bouncy. Press the stopwatch besides position whilst holding Alt and paste the expression. Okay, then we can right click the position and press copy expression only. Select all the layers that we've keyframed, username, three dots, like null, comment null, message, and the bookmark icon, and press Command V to paste the expression. The values turn red, which means our expression's been applied. Let's see how that looks. Awesome. We'll continue with the theme of sequencing the keyframes just like Sutoxoriginals does in his videos. Let's start with the top row. The profile picture is the first thing to pop up, so we can leave that layer where it is. Move the username layer over a little, and the three dots layer after that. That's the top row done. Then we've got the bottom row, which starts with the like section, and that can stay where it is. Then we can move over the comment layers, then the message layers, and finally the bookmark icon. That's looking great. Now we can drag these layers under our shape layer so that they pop out from behind it. Alright, now we're getting somewhere. If you're following along and have made it this far, then you're doing an amazing job. Be sure to post your result in my Discord or tag me on X. I'd love to see what you guys come up with. We could spice up this scene with some micro animations, such as animating the counters, and adding in our own logo to the profile picture circle. I've provided my logo as demo content, so feel free to use that if you want. Drag your logo onto the timeline above the profile picture layer, and let's just move that layer with the left square bracket. Make sure to apply motion blur. Now we can track matte it to the profile picture layer and also link it. Then just move it into place. I'll scale it down so it fits. Like that. Looks good to me. We can even change the username to our own. So I'll put bricks. Alright, now we've got these counters. I've just realized I didn't replace these with the Photoshop text layers, but that's fine, we can do that now. And this will actually show you the power of linking and null objects. Let's find the Photoshop comp for the Instagram post and open up the like number to copy it. paste it above the Illustrator layer, and drag it into place. Then we can right click, create, convert to editable text. Now you can delete the Illustrator layer. Let's link it to the like null. Since we use the null for the animation, everything is still working perfectly fine. Don't forget to apply a motion blur. Alright, let's sort out the other two text layers. Open up comment number, copy the layer to our main comp, and paste it above comment number. Link it to the null, convert to editable text, apply motion blur, and delete the Illustrator layer. Let's just fix these. Those two are working great. Now we've just got the message text. Go back to the Insta comp and open up the message number comp. Copy the layer and paste it above the message number. Link it to the message null, apply motion blur, and convert to editable text. Now we can delete the Illustrator layer and move the layer over, and then just change the color to match. Alright, perfect. We've now set up these text layers. We can get on to animating them. In the effects panel, search for angle control. We're going to link the number to this angle control so that when we increase the angle, it will increase the number. Open up the text layer and then text, which will reveal source text. Then we can open up effects and angle control. To link them, drag this whip icon from source text onto the angle control. Now when we increase it, the value goes up. But as you can see, the 1000 comma has disappeared from our number. We can fix this with a simple expression which I've left in the description. Hold Alt and press the stopwatch icon twice. Then paste in the expression, and just like that, it's given our comma back. Go to the start of the layers and set a keyframe for the angle. Then we can move our playhead further up the timeline and drag the angle to increase the number. Now we've got this cool animation. We can do the same for the other counters. Apply the angle control to this text layer and let's open it up. Link the source text to the angle, then we can hold Alt and click twice on the stopwatch and then paste the expression. Set a keyframe for the angle. Make sure it has a starting value if you don't want it to start from 0. Then we can move up and increase it. Awesome. And finally, we've got the message counter. Apply the angle control effect. Link the source text to it and the starting value. Set a keyframe. Oh, and don't forget the expression. Then move up and increase the angle. And now we've got this cool little scene. Alright, let's start transitioning out of the Insta and into the label. We can do the same out animation as we did with the iOS gallery by having all these elements slide out of the frame. Move the playhead along and select all of the controlling layers. So the profile picture null, the username layer, the 3 dots layer, like null, comment null, message null, and the bookmark icon. Hit P to open the position and press the diamond to set a keyframe. Then move up a few frames. We're going to move the top row first. So select the profile pic null, username, and 3 dots, and drag them till they're out of view. Then we can select the bottom row layers, like, comment, message, and bookmark, and drag them down till they're out of view too. Alright, we've got the initial animation done. Let's easy ease the keyframes. And in the graph editor, drag the left point in so that it slowly slides out and starts ramping up towards the end. Awesome. Then we can just stagger the keyframes. Move the username keyframes to the right by 1 frame, and the same for the 3 dots layer. Now we can repeat for the bottom row. We can leave the like null keyframes as they are, move the comment null keyframes over, then the message null, and lastly the bookmark icons. That looks cool. Alright, it's time to morph this square into the label. Open the label comp and copy the layers into our main composition. I'll paste it above demo video 2 and use the left square bracket to bring the layers to the playhead. We can hide all the layers besides the shape so that it's easier to see. Alright, open up the shape properties, contents, rectangle 1, path 1, and use the diamonds to set keyframes for all of the controls. Let me just zoom in a bit. For this one, we're going to transition the square into a circle and then expand into the label. The best way to make a circle is to first match the height of our shape to the label and then copy the height and paste it onto the width. So let's do that now. I'll decrease the height a bit. That looks good. And then we can copy this value and paste it in the width. If I hide the label shape, we'll be able to see it. So here we've got a perfect square. To make it a circle, we simply increase the roundness. And there we go. We've got this icon from the Instagram scene peeking through. So I'll track map the video overlays to the shape layer. And now it's gone. That looks pretty good, but I'll make the roundness complete earlier. Then we can move a few frames ahead and once again set keyframes for the values using the diamonds. This will keep the shape held in between the keyframes. Move the playhead a few more frames to the right and let's re-enable the label shape. Increase the width of the shape till it matches the label. Perfect. It might look like I've made it a bit too big, but the path matches up. It's only overextended because of the motion blur and the bounce expression. Let's see how that's looking. Cool, that's alright for now. Go to the start of the keyframes and select Demo Video 2. We're gonna fade this out over here. Press T to open the opacity and set a keyframe. Move a few frames ahead and change the opacity to 0. We can trim off the end of this layer. Cool. We should also change the color of this shape so it matches the label. I'll drag this up so I can color pick it. Move the playhead before the shape morph animation starts and open up Fill 1. Set a keyframe for the color. Move up to when you can see the label. Using the dropper, color pick the label. And we can move this keyframe beside the previous one. I'll put it here because I want the color change to happen before the video fades out. That's looking good. I'm not really feeling the bounce at the end of the animation, so instead we'll turn these into easy ease keyframes. In the graph editor, drag in both points. We can extend it a bit. Maybe make that a bit slower in the graph editor. That's cool, and it still has a slight bounce from the keyframes before. Let's turn our layers back on and delete the label shape as we won't need that anymore. Actually, I'll keep the text hidden because we're going to be working on the clock icon. We'll make this icon pop up and then slide to the left as the shape expands. First, let's select the clock layers and link them to the circle, and then recolor the layers. Then we can open up the position and set a keyframe to lock the position. Now just move the playhead back and use the align panel to center the shape. Our icon is now sliding to the left. Let's line these keyframes up with the shape layer keyframes. Apply easy ease. Go into the graph editor and make a similar graph to what we did with the shape layer. So a little in on the left and a bit more on the right. Perfect. Move the playhead to about halfway through the shape morph and press S to open the scale control. Set a keyframe and move it up. Now we can change the scale to 0 for a simple scale up. Apply the bounce expression to the scale by holding Alt and pressing the stopwatch, then just paste in the expression. That looks pretty good. Okay, for the clock hands, we'll be messing around with the anchor points and the rotation controls. Turn on the proportional grid and highlight the minute hand. Press the anchor point tool up here and simply drag the anchor point to the middle of the green lines. We can do the same for the hour hand. The trick to ensuring you get the best movement is to make sure the anchor points line up perfectly. Flick back and forth between them to notice any offsets, and then adjust to get them lined up. With the minute hand layer selected, we can press R to open the rotation and set a keyframe. I'll move it to the start of the animation. Now let's just move up the timeline and change the rotation to 2x. This will rotate the minute hand around the clock 2 times, which is basically 2 hours. Now select the hour hand, set a keyframe for the rotation and drag it to the start. Since we moved the minute hand by 2 hours, I'll approximately move the hour hand by about 2 hours. Small details like this are what make you a polished editor. And now we can apply easy ease. Go into the graph editor and drag the right side in by a lot. Oh, I've actually noticed a slight problem in the scene before. The video isn't big enough for the Instagram post, so it's showing the color behind. It was hard to notice with the black color. Select the demo video 2 layer and scale it up so it's fixed. Alright, that's better. The clock looks a bit too fast, so I'll drag the keyframes out some more. Perfect. Now we can animate in the text. Unhide the layer. And we want to make this slide from left to right, but within the shape. So make sure the text layer is selected. Then hit P to open up the position. Set a keyframe. Then we can drag the text over to the right, leaving some space between the shape and the text layer. Move up the timeline a bit and drag the text so that the ending is within the shape. Highlight the keyframes and apply easy ease. And in the graph editor, drag the right point to the left. Maybe a tad more. And I'll also make the animation a bit faster. Let's make it earlier by shifting the keyframes to the left. Awesome. Now we're going to mask this text so it's within the confines of the label shape. Start by creating a new solid. I'll just name it text mask. Drag the solid under the text layer, and then using the left bracket to move the layer in the timeline. We can hide this too so we can actually see the label. Select the rectangle tool, and then create a mask for the text on the solid layer. I've left space on either side. Now we can track matte the text to the solid. That's working great, but as you can see, the text looks very harsh on the edges. Open up the mask properties and increase the feather amount. There's a bit of an overlay here, so we can just adjust the mask a bit and also a bit on this side. That's looking great. This is how our entire project looks. And that's all I have for you today. If you want a part 2 of me actually recreating one of his videos, then smash the like button and leave a comment down below. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.